For those of you who don't know, I have 4 cats. One of them is a Maine Coon, and the other 3 are regular house cats. The lady in my life has a dog, a crossbreed between a Stafford and a Great Dane, and when she moves in, her dog will be part of the family too. And do you know what I would like to have sometime in the future? I would like to have 2 domesticated foxes, one North American red fox and one European fox, to show the Atlanticist bond. I'm guessing that most people wouldn't have an issue with this, but guess who definitely would have an issue with it? We've talked about vegans on this channel before, but few people have actually touched an issue that they also talk about. Some of them claim that owning a pet is slavery.
And we should teach these patterns, engrave them in the collective psyche and consciousness. Teach our brothers that slavery is not moral. Pets are slaves.
And I think the word pet becomes quite interesting. And we say owner, don't we? I used the word owner just then, the dog's owner. Well, that notion of an owner is somewhat interesting in itself. One thing I didn't touch upon in the talk, but sometimes I do, is the notion of language. And so when I say about reevaluating our relationship with animals and their purpose on this planet, we have to look at how we refer to them and the language that we use. And one thing that most of us say, and I used to say it, and sometimes I still do and I catch myself out, is we call animals it.
That's right. Not only are these people trying to control your diet, but they also want to control who you consider family. I feel like they were denied pets in their childhood and they have never recovered from that trauma. Now their goal is to, basically stop everyone else from having pets.
Wow. Wow!
I've already debunked many other vegan arguments, so let's see what they actually have against pets. The very example here is a YouTuber named Chris Hine. He's a pretty active vegan, and he gave his case against pets at the Just V Show, a public annual event for vegans and vegetarians hosted by the world's worst city. This is going to be epic.
This little creature is a Roborowski hamster. As you can see, it's small, it's cute, it's cheap, it's the kind of pet that you buy a kid as a first pet. And this is where they come from. They come from the mountainous regions of Kazakhstan, Mongolia and China. They can live in burrows up to 6 feet underground, and they live in small colonies. In one night, they can run up to 4 human marathons in search of food. And that's where we keep them.
Did you see the way he said, and that's where we keep them? It was just epic.
And that's where we keep them. The sand that it was once they should live on, replaced with sawdust, is 6-foot burrow replaced with a plastic castle. As I said before, these can run 4 human marathons in one night. An average cage for a Roborowski hamster is about 50 centimeters wide, which would mean to cover the same distance in a 50 centimeter wide cage, you'll need to go back and forward 324,000 times. And we wonder why they use their wheels so much. I mean, there may be owners that give these kind of animals more space, maybe a more enriched environment, but they will never recreate their natural habitat. And it does beg the question, should we really be keeping them at all?
And maybe the answer comes with domestication. Animals that have been domesticated and those that are in the wild are very different because the domesticated breed has historically interacted with humans and have different needs. Did that not maybe occur to you?
This literally is the animals we keep in glass tanks, in wire cages, in wooden hutches, in garden ponds, and in plastic containers. The animals that are generally forgotten about and generally the most abused.
Forgotten about? Do you know how many times you need to feed fish and clean their water? The same idea applies to pets in cages. It really does show that he knows nothing about pets.
Now obviously we forgot about the biggest continents in the world here. We've got Asia, Africa, South America, a combined population here of nearly 6 billion. Now there are no real statistics to show what pet ownership is like in these places, but we can make a bit of an estimate. If we said 10% of that number had one caged animal, so we're not including cats and dogs, one caged animal, we're adding an extra 592 million to our total, which brings the pet estimation up to 816 million animals. Again, not including cats and dogs.
Hold up, where did the 10% come from? Where is he getting these numbers?
Is because most of these pets are seen as three things: kids' toys, ornaments, or a hobby. Think of things like hamsters. They're given to kids sometimes in the hope that it will teach them about life and death. Should we be sacrificing the life of a small animal to teach a child about death?
This guy has a very morbid outlook on pet ownership. I just have to ask, did his parents really go that hard on him when they refused to give him a pet? Hey Chris, here's a reason why children are given pets. It's called responsibility. Maybe they want to teach these children how to be responsible. Not everyone is a pet abuser.
They're not ready and they're not responsible enough to look after these types of animals. Fish, they're ornaments. Who's got a fish that's a member of the family?
Lots of people.
Now, a good example of this is this creature here, which is a sun parakeet or sun canoe. I don't know if anyone's seen these. They're quite a common bird for people to keep. Now, what people might not know is that these are actually on the ICUN endangered species. They're endangered in the wild, and yet they're quite commonplace in the pet trade. And one of the reasons they're endangered, they've been captured from the wild and brought into the pet trade. In fact, there's so little of them, there's now maybe between 1,500 and 4,000 of them left in the wild.
You're only half correct. Yes, they are endangered, but mostly due to loss of habitat. Also, importing the sun parakeet has been illegal in the US and Europe since 1992. Owning pets contributes only a little bit to conservation. The main issue with that is keeping the habitat in the wild active.
Now, the next things we need to talk about is obviously our good friends, the cats and the dogs, which obviously we all love. The difference with cats and dogs is these animals have no wild existence. The majority of cats and dogs these days are man-made animals, and I know that seems really weird to think about, but when has there ever been a wild pug, a wild Jack Russell? They don't exist. They only exist because of our selective breeding and because we want to design dogs. You've heard the term designer dogs.
You do know that they don't exist in the wild because these animals have interacted with humans for thousands of years. Historically, these animals have been friendlier to humans, and both sides have lived with each other. They weren't taken from the wild and forced into our society.
The dog was the first animal to be domesticated, somewhere between 15 and 13,000 years ago. What is unique about the dog is that its ancestors are basically wolves. So our ancestors and dogs' ancestors were at some point maybe enemies.
Wolves are social creatures. They recognize dominance and sociality, so they're already, in a sense, pre-adapted to living with humans. The course of domestication of the dog was probably not a single moment. It was probably a long, long period of experimentation.
The first initial contact was probably made by wolves who were looking to exploit a new food source, who were able to, stand being near people long enough to eat what was being thrown in the scrap heap behind the cave. And in a couple of generations, you've got an animal that is starting to domesticate. And I think what's fascinating about that is the conceptual shift for those early men into how useful that could be. I mean, of course, a domesticated dog is a tremendously useful tool in a survival situation in the wild.
They can watch the mouth of the dwelling for predators. And when humans and dogs begin to hunt together, their capabilities are greatly expanded. The wolf was a much better hunter than we are. So now all of a sudden we have that amazing sense of smell, the ability to track game.
He can hunt at night. He can hunt by sound. He can hunt by smell. He can hear the reindeer over the horizon hours before you'll even become aware of their presence. It's an unbeatable combination. There's humans and dogs together. Nothing can stop them. We have a long relationship with the wolf and the dog, and it's often said the dog is man's best friend, but you can turn that around. dogs will never become extinct. Wolves, on the other hand, are endangered species pretty much everywhere they live. So becoming man's best friend was a good thing for the wolves. No one's ever given up on the domesticated dog.
Now, when we look at the dog and the cat population, you can see approximately we've got 525 million dogs in the world, 600 million cats. So the pet population already, combined with the other one, is already coming up to 2 billion animals. And to be honest, these are very, very rough estimates. It would not surprise me if this was double or more. Now, I don't know if how many of you guys here are vegan, but we always talk about the fact that there's 60 billion land animals in the world, and we always try and fight for those animals. I think sometimes we forget about the another maybe 4 billion animals that also need our help, and the ones that are very extremely close to home.
So what exactly would you like pet owners to do? How would you help them? Would you force people to just send their pets into the wild? Do you realize you'd be sentencing these animals to death? That is the exact opposite of trying to help them. My God, these people are stupid.
Now, cats and dogs, they're in a bit of a weird place. They're not part of the animal world. They're not part of the human world. They're stuck in a weird limbo.
Do you hear how stupid this guy is? Cats and dogs are a part of the animal kingdom because they are animals.
We've got this thing where people seem to think that dogs, especially, they evolved with us. When we're back in, in the caveman times and stuff, that, dogs came to, our cave for warmth and food, and in return they gave us protection, or they gave us companionship. And people seem to think that this evolution is just carried on, and that it's still this mutual arrangement. I would say that went as soon as we claimed ownership over these animals. They didn't become companions anymore, they became property.
Hey, look at me, people. I'm Chris Hine. I am immortal. I was alive in the caveman days. I can tell you for sure that we forced dogs to become a part of our society. We are enslavers. Seriously, this video gets progressively worse and worse.
Dogs, cats, and a lot of animals are dependent on us for everything. For example, with a dog, we decide when the dog eats and drinks. We decide when the dog goes outside. We decide when the dog needs to take a shit. Is this freedom? Is this a mutual arrangement between human and animal? Is it something I just want you to think about? We've also got to think about other things as well, other ethical concerns to do with keeping cats and dogs.
I have to stop him right there. No, we do not decide when they do any of that. For the first point, dogs and cats, especially cats, are natural hunters. They can catch food on their own. The main reason why they eat the food we give them is because they're easier to get. For the second point, this guy has obviously never even seen a doggy door. Lastly, what on earth is he talking about? Does he think that we regulate animals' bowel movements or something? Our pets tell us when they have to shit. And guess what, vegan man? We have to clean up for them. It's quite obvious that this guy has never owned a pet in his life. It just shows how little he knows about animals in general.
As I said before about the idea that we have man-made animals, with these animals also comes a lot of problems. Anyone who's kept a pug will know about the problems pugs have. They have serious breathing difficulties, they can suffer from high blood pressure, fainting, difficulty walking. But this is something to consider. Actually, I'll talk about the rat as well. Rats, mice and rats in pet shops, they all have something called a mycoplasma, which is an infection. They're basically laboratory animals. They came from laboratory situations. They're all basically developed now to grow tumours and have these problems. There's high chances if you have mice or rats that they will get this mycoplasma, which can be fatal to them. My question is, if we've created these animals and they're having these problems, should we really, and this is going to be a difficult thing to kind of go, do we really have an obligation to continue their existence?
According to his logic, we created them and now we have to kill them. I didn't know that we can make animals from science. Not only that, but we have to kill them. Damn, vegans really don't know what they want, whether to save animals or kill them. Next, he talks about pet breeding and how humans are infringing on animal rights because they're stopping them from reproducing. But at the same time, what he also does is saying that breeding animals is wrong. Like, make up your mind, dude.
Breeding animals is wrong. We shouldn't do it.
Yeah, this guy really needs to reevaluate his arguments. But then he says this.
One thing that everyone should know is, before we can solve a problem, we have to realize there is a problem. And pets is something that people do not think about. We take it for granted. We think all our pets are there and they're happy and they're having the best time ever. Like, you might have a dog and treat it really well, but that dog will never ever have a family. It will never be able to run free when it wants. And it's simple things like that which I think these animals are entitled to. Why shouldn't they be? Just because we've done this for many, many years, why don't these animals deserve the same freedom as all their wild counterparts?
Oh yes, lovely. Let's kick our pets out of the house because we vegans can read the minds of animals and we know what they want. You can easily tell that he's wrong because if pets really wanted to be out in the wild, they'd run away as soon as we open the door. It just really shows how idiosyncratic some people are.
When it comes to small animals, we do have a solution, which is good. And it's simple. Don't buy them, don't breed them, and only rescue them. The small animal trade only exists because we support it. We do not need to be buying hamsters. We don't need to be buying rats, fish, gerbils, degus, chinchillas. If we stop buying them, then they will stop breeding them, and eventually the whole thing will stop.
At the beginning of the video, he said that we shouldn't keep them at all because we're enslaving them. Like, why is he contradicting himself now?
Now, obviously, the difficulty is when it comes to cats and dogs, we are so attached to our cats and dogs, they do become parts of the family. And I really don't think that people are going to let cats and dogs go. So what we need to do is find out a way where we can more coexist in a way which is fairer and more mutual to those animals. Like I said, I don't know what the solution to that is, but I think the first step is everyone just to realise there is a problem, and once we realise there's a problem, we can look after it. Obviously, if we stop breeding, then we saved all the animals from the shelters, all the animals we've got here have got a home, then we're in a good position to think about what the future holds. So, all I'm really going to say is, and the slide's a bit wrong, but I'll fill in the bottom for you, love your pets, because, my God, they deserve it. Okay.
I think the majority of pet owners know that.
We've got to realise these animals should never be here. Domestication should have never happened. We love these animals, we love them with all our hearts. We really, really do. But we need to start thinking about the future of them. And domestication is not the future these animals deserve. We need to find a better way. So that's all from me, really.
Yeah, his conclusion basically sums up all his points. Don't have a pet at home because it's one of humanity's biggest mistakes. I mean, you just can't believe how some people would take a situation that is not a problem at all and then brand it as some kind of really big problem. So this guy said that he doesn't know what the solution is throughout the video. I kind of do have a solution for him and his warped view on animals. Maybe he should temporarily have a pet, just for a little bit. That way he might be able to feel that an animal is very capable of living in a household and loving its owner or friend, if you don't want to call them that. This is not slave ownership, it's friendship. If Chris Hine ever does see this video, I'd like to, tell him maybe to try it out. He probably has never had a pet, which has obviously given him this mentality. If he maybe had a pet for at least a little while, it might warp his world and change the way he sees domesticated animals.